sir. We have Adams Hill in sight.
Guys, 904 Foxtrot, enter left base, runway 18, contact the tower, 118.7, good day.
Alright, enter left base, runway 18 and tower 18.7. Have a good day, 904 Foxtrot.
Yeah!
Adams Tower, good morning. Skog 519 for Foxtrot's on a 12-mile left base, runway 18.
194 Foxtrot, Adams Tower, runway 18, clear to land.
Alright, clear to land, runway 18, 904 Foxtrot.
Hello YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of Non-Rev Stories, Flight Stories from a Non-Rev. On this episode of Non-Rev Stories, my good friend and fellow co-worker Richie and I fly along the east coast of the United States. Before we get into this video, let's talk about social media. Green Brothers Flying is on every main social media platform. We are on Instagram at Green Brothers Flying, on Facebook as Green Brothers Flying, and on Discord. All links will be in the description below. On this episode of Non-Rev Stories, myself and my good friend and fellow co-worker Richie fly around the East Coast to fly on American's Embraer ERJ-190 aircraft. After a few hours of planning 2 days before the trip, we finally found the route we would take to finally get to fly on the Embraer ERJ-190. We would go from Little Rock to Chicago, Chicago to New York LaGuardia, New York LaGuardia to Philadelphia, Philadelphia to Charlotte, and Charlotte to Little Rock. All in all, it would be around 2,100 miles and be about 21 hours worth of flying and traveling. The day started bright and early for both of us, as our first flight left Little Rock at 7:15 in the morning. I woke up at about 4:55 a.m. local time and was out of the house by 5 a.m. After 45 minutes, I arrived at the airport, walked in, and got into the massive line for security. While my buddy and I were in the security line, we saw another fellow co-worker who was also going to Chicago for an unrelated reason. The time now is 6:15 a.m. and we are at our gate. Our gate for departure is gate 3, and sitting there is our aircraft for the flight. Our aircraft for the flight is November 256, November, an Embraer ERJ-175. At 6:30 a.m., all three of us got our boarding passes, and since Richie and I were on this standby list first, we got the first two seats in first class that were open, seats 1D and 1F. I was seat 1D. Our fellow co-worker sat right behind us in seat 2D. At 7 a.m., the door closed, and we pushed from the gate and taxied to runway 22 left. Shortly thereafter, we rocketed into the bright morning sunlight, and we were on our way to Chicago. We reached our cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, or flight level 350. After what seemed to be a quick hour, we started our descent into the greater Chicago area. 20 minutes later, we landed on runway 9 right, and to our surprise, it was cold and snowy, which went against all the planned forecasts for the day. Anyways, after a 10-minute taxi, we arrived at our gate L10A or Lima 10 Alpha, and deplaned. Since it was around 8:45 a.m., we decided that we would try and get some breakfast. After walking all the way to the United side of the Chicago O'Hare Airport, we finally decided that Auntie Anne's would be breakfast. We got breakfast and then walked back to the gate where our next flight would be out of. Our next flight was from Chicago O'Hare Airport to New York LaGuardia Airport. Our gate for this flight was H9 Hotel 9 and was operated by an Airbus A319, November 776 X-Ray Foxtrot. This Airbus A319 was an old Frontier plane before American bought it. My seat assignment for this flight was also seat 16C and aisle seat. Since this flight was emptier than normal, the middle seat was open. The flight pushed from the gate at 10:21 a.m. local time, and we taxied to runway 9 right again. We waited about 40 minutes to take off due to traffic, but when we were in the air, it was a super quick flight at 39,000 feet. After a quick hour and a half, we started our descent into the New York metro area. On descent, we passed over the Statue of Liberty and the World Trade Center site and made a visual approach to runway 22. The landing was firm, but you have to expect that coming into LaGuardia. We had a short taxi to the gate and got off the plane quickly. Since it was lunchtime, Richie and I decided that we were hungry and took the shuttle bus over to the new terminal. We walked around for a bit looking for ideas and finally decided on Shake Shack. Around 2:30 p.m. local time, we took the shuttle back to our terminal and went to our gate. Since this flight was also really empty, we got our boarding pass as soon as we got to the gate. I was seated in seat 8D and had a whole row to myself. Our aircraft today was November 959 Uniform Whiskey, an Embraer ERJ-190, and the purpose of this trip. For the people that watched this far into the episode, here are my thoughts on the American Airlines E190. First of all, the plane looks like a normal Embraer aircraft. It has a pointed nose and has a normal seating configuration of 2-2 in the back. It also has a standard 1-2 seating in first class, except it does not have seat 1A, a single seat that is in the first row. The aircraft is spacious and is honestly just a stretched version of the Embraer ERJ-175. The only real downside is that the windows are misaligned, but that's a minor thing. All in all, if you like the Embraer 175 series, you will like the Embraer ERJ-190 series. Now, back to the rest of the trip. Boarding was quick, and soon enough, we were on our way taxiing to runway 31. It was a short taxi, and before we knew it, we were in the sky, bound for Philadelphia. Our cruising altitude was 8,000 feet, and it took about 40 minutes. At 4:52 p.m. local time, we arrived at the gate in Philadelphia. We got off the plane quickly and walked around and explored, since none of us had ever been there before. While we were walking around, we decided to get some food, and since we were in Philadelphia, we had to go get the classic Philly cheesesteak. After we got our cheesesteaks, we walked to the other terminal to get Jamba Juice because that is what we were craving. After that, we went back to our gate and sat down and enjoyed our food. This flight was the fullest of them all, but since we were number 1 and 2 on the standby list, we would get on the plane. On this flight to Charlotte, we were on an Airbus A320, November 125 Uniform Whiskey. I was seated in seat 12D, an aisle seat. I did not mind, as I tend to like the aisle seats on fuller flights. Having the aisle allows me to get up when I need to without having to climb over everyone. We departed on time at 6:55 p.m. local time and departed runway 2 at 7 left. We got to cruise and settled in. After what seemed like a very long hour and 20 minutes, we started our descent into the greater Charlotte area. 20 minutes later, we were on the ground. We landed runway 36 left and had a long taxi to the gate. We arrived at our gate around 8:50 p.m. local time. By the time we got off the plane, it was around 9 p.m. Once we got off the plane from Philly, we decided to walk around a little since we had a lot of time before our next flight. Our next flight was honestly the most interesting one. Around 10 p.m. local time, we headed to our gate to get our boarding pass, but to our surprise, our flight had been delayed. It was delayed because the aircraft that was supposed to take us back to Little Rock diverted to Mobile, Alabama because the weather in Pensacola was bad. It got delayed until midnight and then got all the way pushed back to 1 a.m. local time. That was kind of annoying since we had been up for a while and we just wanted to go home. It was like that for a while until they found another plane and tail swapped our plane. Tail swapping occurs when a new aircraft is assigned to fly a route that isn't supposed to due to delays, etc., etc. Finally, they found an airplane, November 527 Echo Alpha, a CRJ-700. We also had a gate change. With that swap, our flight was back on time. Finally, we could get out, right? You would think so. But that was not the end of the troubles. As we went up to get our boarding pass, the gate agent announced that our flight would be delayed again due to not having a crew. Finally, after about a 40-minute delay, we boarded the plane. I was sitting in seat 10D, another aisle seat. After all the confusion and delays, we finally took off at 11 p.m. local time. Our scheduled arrival time back into Little Rock was supposed to be 11:53 p.m. local time, but after all the delays, we only got in about 20 minutes late. We got into the gate at around 12:13 a.m. local time the next day. Once we deployed, we went our separate ways. All in all, it was a fun trip just to fly for one aircraft, and I now only have one American Airlines aircraft I have not flown on, and that is the Airbus A330. If you like these videos, consider giving this video a like, comment, and of course subscribe to the channel for more videos. Until the next one, blue skies and a tailwind.